The yard job gives a send-off to NRFF departing North Reading Yard at 2:10 p.m. sharp, starting their 4-hour journey north to Pittston. Upon arrival, they will drop their train and pick up outbounds built by the Pittston yard job for the return to North Reading for interchange at Norfolk Southern's Reading Yard, a cycle that repeats almost daily. The trip is 113 miles one way on both the Reading and Lehigh divisions of the R&N main line. Also included on this map are the locations we shot NRFF over 2 days of chasing 5019 in the freshly painted fast freight scheme. While 5019 was painted in the fall of 2020, it didn't end up leading the North Reading fast freight until the end of May in 21. 5019 is a former CSX SD50 downrated from 3,500 to 3,000 horsepower in the mid-2000s, essentially making it like the trailing SD40-2s. On Saturday, May 22nd of that year, I finally got out to see 5019 lead its third trip on NRFF, slowly working their way through the yard toward Rickenbach. The signal at Rick on the other side of 222 is obscured by trees in this shot, but will give them a clear north onto 40-mile-per-hour track. NRFF is currently one of 2 fast freights on the R&N, the other being WHFF based out of West Hazelton. At the time of filming, NRFF ran every day of the week, though currently no longer runs Saturdays unless an extra is called. They say April showers bring May flowers. I say April showers just bring more May showers, at least in eastern Pennsylvania, as is the case on Sunday, May 30th, when I began my second chase at Muller Interlocking in Hamburg. They continue onto the new main one at milepost 76, left over from the Reading days, measuring the distance from Philadelphia. Their journey is all uphill until Hawks, so you can expect good sounds from the EMDs the whole way. They fly by doing every bit of 40 while they can, approaching Blue Mountain in the distance. Most of R&N's trackage lies to the north, hence the name Reading, Blue Mountain, and Northern. At Port Clinton, an onslaught of rail fans gathered to see 5019 leading past the railroad's headquarters. 5018 is off to the right at the diesel shop, still wearing the original and short-lived red version of the fast freight scheme that wasn't deemed as popular as the black one. The train now slows to 20 in the short DCS block between Pulpit and Clint, passing underneath the old signal bridge that may one day carry signals again when the gap in CTC is filled. The unmistakable sound of former CSX K5LA sounds for the Broad Street crossing behind us. The current fast freight scheme matches nicely with the F units parked in the distance, which will be featured in the next video. Above Port Clinton, the track speed for freight will resume at 30 all the way up the mountain to Hawks. No chase would ever be complete without pulling off to the side of Route 895 and standing on the hill overlooking the field at Miller's Crossing. The property owners here are incredibly friendly, putting up with the hordes of rail fans that have lined up to witness freights and steam excursions passing through the countryside. I'd like to personally extend a thank you to the owners and remind rail fans that hospitality is a two-way street and to always be respectful of locations like these. Lavender rhododendron liven up the gloomy Sunday chase along Pine Valley Road below New Ringgold on a prime section of railfan real estate. Heavy freight tonnage regularly pounds this section of jointed rail that also sees steam alive and well in the 21st century. What more could you ask for? Today's train contains building materials and plastics hoppers up front for the Kaiser Valley. Next are boxcars of tissue fiber for Procter & Gamble in Mahoopany, followed by more boxcars of food and beverage products for Kane's warehouses near Scranton. Just around the corner is the 87 automatic block signal, which means we've already chased 24 miles above North Reading. Tamaqua is the largest town along the R&N main line outside of the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area, whose name comes from the Lenape word for beaver. It is home to a beautifully restored Reading train station containing a restaurant and small shop. The gate tower still stands next to Broad Street. Constructed out of CMUs in 1960, it once controlled the 5 crossings on this particular stretch through town. The engineer feeds them fuel to make a run for the hill north of town, where the grade will quickly climb in excess of 1%. Nesquehoning Mountain rises in the distance, the very same mountain the tracks will eventually turn and follow downhill on the other side from Hawks toward Jim Thorpe. A mile and a half later, the train starts to dig into the grade at Tuscarora Park Road. The average grade to Hawks is around 1.1%, with a few steep portions between 1.5 and 1.8 for their first challenging climb of the trip. The roar of wide-open 645s is a thrill every rail fan goes out of their way to see, and is nothing out of the ordinary on Reading and Northern in the 2020s. This is one section where the heavily loaded down train is unable to make track speed, allowing us to get ahead at East Mahanoy Junction, where the M&S branch splits off to Mount Carmel. One of the steepest sections of the grade is on the approach to EMX, making them work hard to keep above 18 miles per hour after taking 13 minutes to traverse 4 miles. A brief segment of flatter terrain above here allows the train to gain some speed, with one last mile of steep climb to Hawks still ahead. In order to get far enough ahead, we skip most of the Nesquehoning branch, giving us time to hike down the hill to Jim Thorpe Junction for advantage of the train taking the new connection over the Lehigh River, which forms a Y with the previously existing track in the foreground that heads into Jim Thorpe. Electrical work is going on here, with new signal bases in position for CTC installation on all legs of the Y, from the existing Nesquehoning Junction behind us, on the bridge at River, and directly in front of us at the new Jim Thorpe Junction. At the time of uploading, the installation is complete and all signals here are active. The next step will be to close the gap in CTC south to Hawks. Brakes hold the train back, making their last descent down to Cole, the junction between the Lehighton branch and main line across the river at the entrance to the Lehigh Gorge. CTC begins again at Cole, with the track speed raising back to 30 from 25. The head end enters the gorge as the rear crosses the new bridge and over the switch at River, where the Jim Thorpe Y connects to the main line. The through truss bridge carries the train over both the R&N Lehighton branch and the Norfolk Southern Lehigh line. Upon entering the gorge, the rails pass through the rock cut at Glenanoco. NRFF is passing milepost 125 on the jointed stick rail of the R&N main line, accelerating to track speed. The Norfolk Southern Lehigh line parallels on the right that only sees one nocturnal movement to Hazleton via the Ashmore Secondary. While I was setting up here, emergency personnel and park rangers arrived for someone that was injured upstream while rafting. Thousands of people visit the gorge each year for hiking and whitewater rafting along the Lehigh River, and unfortunately accidents do happen. There is no vehicle access for the next 18 miles until Tannery, the gorge only accessible by foot or bike on the trail following the former C&J right-of-way along the river, the park ranger making an exception for the rescue.
Roger, NRFF with the RBMN 5019 has pushed past the stop signal at Whitehaven. Single track, north direction. Over.
The dispatcher talks NRFF by the stop signal at Whitehaven, which is evidently having problems lining up their movement. Ado seems just as surprised as I am at our encounter, though she didn't stick around for the train, now crossing back over to the west side of the Lehigh River at Bridgeport between Tannery, just below Whitehaven. They notch down to slow for a brief stop at the Whitehaven holdout just around the corner, though I've edited this scene as if the train kept rolling. Their short pause here added to a list of delays for Sunday's chase, running some 30 minutes behind at this point. The rear of the train crosses over the former CNJ right-of-way that carries the Lehigh Gorge Trail into Whitehaven. Above here, the grade stiffens, giving us another round of mountain railroading. A few miles above Whitehaven, the train digs into the climb to Mountaintop, entering the frequently photographed Keenapple curve along Tunnel Road. It's easy to see why this is a popular spot, as 2nd Gen EMD's work Notch 8 through a sweeping S-curve with a grade approaching 1.3%. Just around the corner from Keenapples, the train enters the Whitehaven Tunnel. About a 1/3 mile in length, you can see the ceiling was at one point notched to allow the passage of double stacks, which no longer go through here following resignation of service on this route by both Canadian Pacific and Norfolk Southern. A minute later, the train pushes a gust of air out of the tunnel as they exit the 140-year-old stone portal. We continue a couple more miles up the grade at Burgers to witness them dropping the automatic block signal at 149 North. As the rear exits the block, the signal goes dark, not to be lit again until they return south by here a couple hours later. In 3 miles, the train will reach the top of the grade at Crestwood, where it will also become double track 4 miles to Solomon's Gap. At Mountaintop, they cruise under the 155 signal bridge and pass the Penobscot Yard Office. They're easily able to maintain track speed on the flat over the second highest mountain crossing on the railroad at an elevation around 1,639 feet. Just around the curve from Penobscot Yard is Solomon Gap, the pass between Haystack Mountain and Penobscot Knob. The main returns to single track, passing under Route 437 and through a large rock cut behind us out of view, thus beginning their 1,000-foot descent to Pittston. It's nice to see old signal hardware still in place after many decades of guarding train movements over the mountain, considering much of the other side down to Pittston has seen modern replacements. One such location is halfway down the hill at Seidel, where Reading and Northern reinstalled a crossover here that was removed during Conrail. This is also one of the few accessible locations before reaching the densely populated Wyoming Valley, where traffic makes chasing nearly impossible. The tracks wind their way down another 10 miles to Coxton Yard, descending an average 1.16% grade. It appears NRFF is already lined for their return south. Skipping ahead to Pittston, we were surprised to see the YJPI working out on the main, assembling the outbound train for the NRFF. A pair of former Santa Fe GP30Us sit on the Wilkes-Barre leg of the Y, with the Scranton branch in the foreground. YJPI makes another double past the yard office with SD38 2003 and GP30U 2534, one of two receiving the Cornell Red passenger scheme for their intended use on the Lehigh Gorge Scenic Railway, though were soon dispersed into freight service once GP38-2s arrived on the property. R&N reclassed them to GP39 RNs after much-needed servicing upon their arrival in 2014. Meanwhile, NRFF holds back at Pitt. It's 7 p.m. on the dot, the time they'd normally be departing home for North Reading, but several delays were encountered en route. Once the yard job shoves the train onto Track 2 and moves their power into the clear, NRFF proceeds down the final stretch of near 1% grade that will level out once they cross the Lackawanna River into the yard. The power then cuts away to retrieve their train on the Susquehanna branch as YJPI eases up to grab the inbounds. While this is taking place, the crews swap ends and SD40-2 3057 will lead the trip south. Like North Reading, Pittston is a busy place, with several trains originating here requiring 2-yard crews throughout the day. This is actually the YJPI-2 that went on duty at 1800. The morning crew starts at 7. PISB also goes on in the morning, heading up the Scranton branch to serve the NS interchange at Taylor and customers in the Kaiser Valley. PIME heads up the Susquehanna branch to Mahoopany, primarily serving the P&G Charmin toilet paper facility and the new frac sand transload in Tunkhannock. There's also the couple-day-a-week PICW that runs up the mountain and back, serving the Crestwood Industrial Park and Penobscot Yard. With the yard job almost in the clear, NRFF brightens their headlight and I relocate up the road to the Duryea Cemetery, offering a great view over the valley. those that came before us witnessed a much different era of railroading in the Wyoming Valley that was once served by 8 different railroads. Today, the Reading and Northern operates over the remnants of 7 predecessors, including 5 of the 8 in the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton area alone, making it a regional railroad like no other. I hope you enjoyed this video and subscribe for future videos where we'll dive deeper into the rich history of the region surrounding the Reading and Northern. Until then, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.